From the former convent of the Good Shepherd overlooking Inwood Park in New York City, welcome to Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where you meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes that make their home in what we affectionately call Upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we welcome theater maker Martyna Majok. Martyna was born in Bytom, Poland, and raised in Jersey and Chicago. She was awarded the 2018 Pulitzer Prize for Drama for her play Cost of Living, which debuted this past fall on Broadway. Other plays include Sanctuary City, Queens, and Ironbound, which have been produced across America and international stages. We're going to talk to her about her work and so much more, but first, I'm happy to welcome you, Martyna, to Inwood Art Works On Air. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. So how did you find putting roots down in Inwood?
Oh my gosh. I had kind of an intense welcome to New York experience. I came after grad school with very little money. I didn't have enough for a security deposit, and I ended up spending my first year in New York hopping amongst 13 different sublets. One month there were 4. It was the second month that I was here, the place had bed bugs. It was just I got hazed by New York for trying to pursue my dreams, and how dare I, the hubris.
Oh my goodness.
So this is one of the places that I sublet was in Inwood, and I fell in love with the parks and just the kind of expanse, just Europe's so high. It's so expansive. It's really invites you to feel creative and get lost in the woods. I think I was wandering the park one day, the moment that I knew I wanted to live here, and when I heard an opera singer in the park, I was just, has this happened to you? Where you're just wandering the park and
it's like a siren song
incredible.
calling you around, or you want to follow the sound, and yet you don't want to. You just kind of let it envelop you, right?
Yeah, it's just stay quiet and enjoy it, because you'd have to be paying for it otherwise. It was so good.
Exactly.
And I was like, this is magical. This is so beautiful. And I after that year, I hopped around a little bit more. I ended up in Queens for a year. And then I had this incredible opportunity called the Pony Fellowship with Sam Hunter, who also lives nearby, had it as well. It's an acronym for the Playwrights of New York. Mm-hmm. It was a free apartment to live in Midtown on 45th and 9th, which really, really, I think, saved me financially and helped me continue to be a playwright, because it can be just so hard to do. You have to find the time to do work for free and then hope somebody will produce it and pay for it after a certain point. But after that year, I was able to kind of save some money and get my feet on the ground, and I came right up here, and I've been here since 2016.
Wow. That's great. That's great. It's a good story. Heck, you can write a play about your travel experiences, and it's more along the lines of maybe a farce, if anything else.
It took a little bit for cost of living. It's like a woman who's hopping from place to place, and I was like, yep. Wonder where that's from.
Well, yes. Well, life imitates art, and art imitates life. Exactly. I think you wound at a good place, and you talk about cost of living. We'll definitely talk about it. But it's funny too. You would think. I feel like I've known your work for a long time, but I only know 4 of your plays, and it's like, well, I think there is only 4 of your plays, and I'm just like I felt like there's got to be more than 4.
Oh my God, the pressure! Yeah, I'm working on it. I got some musicals in the pipe. I got some films in the pipeline.
Yes, I know.
This is the thing when we start doing TV and film is you have to kind of wait and hope for them to.
I know. Well, like you said too, it's not like you haven't written more than 4. It's just point is you've been writing for a long time, but I think that's a compliment. I hope it is a compliment to you. because it's those 4 plays, or maybe 3 more than the 4. I don't know. People know Queens as much as the others, but I know them. But I work in theater too, so that's maybe part of why I do. But I think it's a high compliment that people are to be known and to be revered for your work. I think it's a really high compliment, and because it's about the substance. It's not the quantity. And so I think it's pretty awesome. And I was just thinking, because we're talking about our neighborhood for a second, there's a lot of, you talk about your travels, making your way into cost of living. There are a lot of immigrant stories in your writing. So I'm curious, has the local culture of our neighborhood crept its way in? Because, there is one immigrant culture in Manhattan. It's Inwood, Washington Heights for sure. Yeah. So I don't know, has it crept into your writing yet by any chance at all?
I felt like it was a reminder of where it came from, because I grew up in a multicultural immigrant neighborhood in Jersey, and most of the people, English was their second language, and so I was surrounded by like this beautiful poetry of these mouths from everywhere. And then I went to like fancy schools on scholarship and was not surrounded by that, and then moved back here. And it was like it just felt like a coming back home, and like hearing my rhythms, and also like the East Coast, like Jersey, New York rhythm, like those. So I'm really inspired by like the way people speak, especially for people for whom English is not their first language. I also like. I used to date a lot of guys in Inwood and Washington Heights when I was in high school. So like I was here often, and I'm writing about like the past. And so yeah, it's definitely, some ex-boyfriends have definitely found their ways in my life. So that's why.
Who shall not be named.
Who shall not be named.
But
I hope that they're listening. Thanks for the good times.
Exactly. I'm living off of it.
The memories, exactly.
Well, I also come from a working class background too, kind of in a way, a community of a lot of great people and I found my way into the arts. Did you have through just a love for going to see things, and I didn't have anybody in my family who kind of paved the way, so I was curious. I'm always just hearing about your origin story in a way, but like your creative origin story, like your path. Was anyone in your family like an artist, or did you kind of said, no, I'm finding out on my own? And it was like, did you have a kind of like, I don't know, personal mentor that kind of was special to you that kind of helped you find your way?
Not in like a let me show you theater. Really, it was I was born in Poland. And my grandfather was a painter, but to be a painter in Poland under communism was a very specific.
You do it in your attic by yourself.
Yeah. We were like, you gotta hide it, and like, but you were contracted to do what the state wanted you to do, and so my grandfather. Yeah, he'd have this little room where he'd paint for himself, and he'd paint like my childhood bedroom. Which my bedroom was like my mom's. It was a tiny little Eastern European apartment, so it was like 2 rooms, where my mom was born, and like where then I was born, and he would like paint the walls, like make beautiful art where he could, but he wasn't like a well-known painter or an artist, but I think I revered him so much, and so I think I wanted to be a lot like him. I tried to draw, I tried to paint, and then we came to America, and that was just me, my mom, and my half-sister who was born here, and I went into public school where there wasn't like that much of an arts program, but I kept I mean, I'll tell you this, the like sad reality of how I started writing is that I grew up with a lot of domestic violence when I was living in New Jersey, and I'd have to do a lot of quiet activities when I'd close myself behind the door, and a lot of that was drawing and painting and writing. I remember getting a school assignment to like write 2 pages about something, and I came in with 25. And my poor public school teachers were like, we can't do this. Like, we're not actually paid this enough. We love you so much, thank you. But they encouraged me to kind of funnel that. I wanted to communicate in this way, and so they encouraged me to write plays. I didn't know what plays were. I thought they were movies you couldn't afford to make, so you did them like.
Yes, they are.
Now, exactly, that's true. And I was like, not wrong. So I had a lot of, I guess, public school teachers who were like, who could see that there was like a yearning for me to find some way to express, and they just gave me that. I used to stay after school and like do. I worked for an after school program that used to teach immigrant parents and their preschool age children English together. Kind of give them muscle memory language. So like, what might they say if they're going to the bank or to a cafe? And we would write these skits in Polish, Spanish, Portuguese, and English. I wrote for all of them except for the Portuguese ones. And we would perform them for this after school group. And I didn't realize that was theater. I was making theater. And I, similarly to the 2 pages turning into 25, as I would write these skits, they became more and more elaborate. Like there was like a murder heist at the bank, and there was like an illicit love affair at the cafe. And again, they were like, they just need to know how to order a sandwich. Like, it's not that serious. Please, like, calm down.
Can we just cut to the cashier if gives them the change?
Yeah. Be like, it costs $5. And you're like, thank you so much. Yes. But I had it in me, but didn't, I guess, know that was a I could do anything really with it. At the same time, this is a roundabout story, but at the same time that I was working at that adult literacy program, one of my other part-time jobs at the time was I would hustle at a pool hall. The pool hall was called Guys and Dolls, which, like, in hindsight, this was faded.
It's like the lamb's blood on top of the angel flies over.
You guys look at this. Open your eyes. And so I hustled $45 one day from some comps, which is more than I'd ever won playing pool. So I was like, oh, this is a really special amount of money. I should use it towards something I wouldn't usually have used it toward had I come about it in any legal manner. At the same time, my mom, she used to clean houses. She still cleans houses on the side. And she, when people would leave out magazines and pamphlets for recycling, she would bring those home to me and my sister because she saw them as free reading material. And so one day there was this pamphlet for something called Cabaret. She didn't know what it was, but John Stamos was in it. And so she brought this pamphlet home to me and told me that Uncle Jesse is in New York, and is this of interest to me? And my latchkey kid brain was like, yeah, cool. What's Cabaret? And I saw that the cheapest tickets were $45, and I was like, perhaps it's a sign. So I saw the Sam Mendes production at Studio 54 with, John Stamos taking over for Alan Cumming, not realizing this is like the most iconic, most incredible theater ever. And I saw it in my last year of high school and was just so moved and blown away to, just be in a room with that much life, with people just fully inhabiting their humanness, their singing and just the dancing. Everything was just, I couldn't believe it. That's like capacity of human beings to fill a room with that much life. And it was also the story that was dark and difficult, and it didn't compromise what it was about. And it still it literally welcomed me in. Yeah. I mean, it invited me in with its generosity and humor and sexiness, and the way that it made me feel, I wanted so desperately for the rest of my life to make other people feel a similar way. To feel like this feeling of home.
Definitely coming to your cabaret, old chum. We've been there a few times, and I kind of see the parallel too. I mean, you're talking about your grandfather's work. That stifling of having to do art in a vacuum, kind of, and then the cabaret, very much that whole theme of that whole show. When you existing when and how and what by what means. What great themes. Wonderful. Very cool. And here you are. That's pretty awesome. And I could see how that would fuel you in your writing. Really, really powerful. And you're here to tell the tale. So for those who didn't know, speaking of her tales, this past fall at Manhattan Theater Club, it presented your play Cost of Living on Broadway after producing it previously off Broadway at the Stage 1 space. And just for those, I'll do my best to to attempt to speak of the play somewhat concisely. It explores themes of disconnection and interdependence, the complexity of caring and being cared for, and it's also very funny and romantic. It's an intimate play. So just from a theater nerd point of view, I have to say too is that you've this very intimate, almost chamber-like production off Broadway to go to the Broadway stage. I'm curious, how did it impact the dynamics of presenting the play?
I actually, I wanted to make it feel more expansive. I've always seen it as something that's much more cosmic than it seems initially, I guess, on the page, because there's four characters. Right. They're all mostly domestic spaces, but there's this in conversation with miracles, and it's in conversation with the ways that we're connected and need each other. There's a ghost in the play. There's like people speaking from beyond and yearning for kind of magic that comes from moments of grief. And so I wanted that to be more a part of the production, because I felt like it was in the writing of it. And so the fact that we got to go to a Broadway space with this giant ceiling, and we redid the music entirely to kind of make it to give it that we like something cosmic that was like a cosmic classical beauty. I hope that was Mikhail Suleiman did the original music, and it was just incredible. So yeah, it was a great invitation to kind of be able to expand it in that way that I'd always thought of it, and then to be able to share that version with more people. It's great.
Well, I saw it. It was awesome.
Thanks.
It featured award-winning performances by Greg Musgala and Katie Sullivan, and you added Kara Young and David Zayas, who are, I see, like everywhere all the time. I just saw Kara do Classical Theater Harlem 12th night last summer, and David's like in everything everywhere. He lives
all
up
at
here.
once.
He lives in everything all at once, and he lives up here too. He lives like in the Edgecombe area of the world. And the casts have changed over the years since 2016 is when you started
in Williamstown.
In Williamstown. So I was curious too, like how has the response to play evolved for you since that time?
I mean, particularly with the pandemic, I think it's, I wrote it out of a moment of deep precarity, right? Like that time of hopping around from apartment to apartment was when I first started writing the play. The monologue came about one day after I got fired from my bartending job because they thought I stole $100, which I fucking didn't, but sorry. But I still got fired for it.
Bleep. I'm not going back there.
Yeah. So I actually had just lost my grandfather, the one that I talked about, the artist, pretty suddenly, and I wasn't able to go to Poland for his funeral. I was also afraid to go because I didn't want it to be real, and so I was dealing with economic uncertainty, housing uncertainty, grief, and it kind of all recent unemployment, and so it all just kind of came together.
Yeah, a lot to take care of.
Yeah, it was it's definitely a time capsule of a play of that time of that first year in New York. So I had written it from this place of instability and needing and resisting and being really I really didn't want to feel like I needed to be taken care of, but I absolutely it was such a struggle to get on my feet that first year. And then after the pandemic happened, I feel like it became something more collective. The sentiment from which I wrote it felt like it was something that we had shared as a on this global home, and I think people were connecting to it more so on a personal level than they had in 2016. More people were.
Gotcha. Well, I think it's going to be done quite a bit, and the parameters of the show obviously are you have the right people to do it, obviously too. But I think you found them, and I wanted to ask. For those who haven't had a chance to see it, is there an opportunity for a streaming version, perhaps?
I am working on it. Yes, we were able to record it by the skin of our teeth, and which is a difficult venture, as I'm sure you know. And the theater is recording it and capturing these. What's the beauty of theater is the ephemerality, et cetera, et cetera. But I really want more people to see it. Like that's actually, I just want access. Like this is why not have more access for more people to see it? That where you're not bound by geographic or financial limitations to see these stories. So we have it recording, and now we are trying to release it hopefully soon. But it looks really good. I'm so excited, and I hope I can share it with more people because I'm so proud of it.
Well, speaking of the cosmic nature of things, right? Let it live in the ether, the zeros and ones. Let the matrix have it, so to speak. Well, I hope it finds its way out sooner than later and to be shared. And I feel my personal opinion, because it was actually my thesis for my master's program. It was about live streaming Broadway, and I was talking to my chair of that department. I was a little ahead of my time, wasn't I?
Yeah.
And this is 10 years ago now. And the funny thing is that I feel like it's great marketing for the show. I think it'll be a really great marketing for the show, and I feel like the licensing will go out the wazoo for it once, and so you can buy your own condo in Inwood.
That'd be so dreamy.
And have like a playwright's bedroom over there.
I'll have my own fellowship.
Your own fellowship program, exactly.
Like that bedroom is a 501c3, you guys.
Yes, the Majok Studio program over here, where you can sit and write and sleep. So speaking of the present, what are you doing right now? What ideas are you kicking around in your head?
I've got 2 musicals that I'm working on right now, actively working on, as well as 3 films. I'm very tired.
Well, thanks for fitting us in. Jeez.
No, this is an honor.
We're nice we call it diversion from that.
This is an honor. This is lovely. I've been segmenting my days. This is the first time I'm doing this, of actually splitting full days. I didn't think I could do it, but it'll be like a morning where I work on the rewrites for one film. in conversation with the director. We're doing sort of script sessions, and then in the afternoon going down to the theater to do another kind of script session for one of the musicals. Then preparing when that all that time is done, preparing rewrites for the other film, which I'm now going by the week. And preparing, casting and stuff for the other, and the only one for the other musical, the only one that I can actually announce is the Great Gatsby musical. That's with Rachel Chafkin directing and Florence Welch of Florence and the Machine doing music along with Thomas Bartlett. That's going to be premiere in about a year from now. At ART, and
yes,
hopefully Broadway.
I hope so too. And just so you brought it up, and it's an adaptation. They're not doing the version of the elevator repair service where they're reading it word for word. And they're not singing the entire book. Let's put it that way.
It's a great book, but yeah, that'd be quite long.
Yeah, it would be quite long, as we all know, because some of us sat through that show. So when I hear adaptation, I just want to hear So what are you bringing to the material? Like what is because there's obviously it's the story, the search in a lot of ways for her, the pursuit, the drive for her, and then of course you have all the people get caught up in the Roaring '20s motif and all too. So just want to hear, like, when you hear adaptation, like what's the take? What's the angle?
Well, the book came to me right pretty early in the pandemic, and it was the perfect time to reread that book in one's 30s while the world is falling apart. We read it in high school, and we're like, green light means money, and the parties, and we have all these kind of very basic interpretations of it, but you really read it in your adulthood, and I connected to it on so many levels. I especially the container of time that it's obviously not in the book, but when you realize that the story takes place 4 years after the end of a world war and the end of a pandemic which killed a third of the world's population, mostly young people, then you're like, I understand the gin, I get the parties, I get why everyone has this feral hunger for meaning and to maybe blow up their lives a little bit. And like it's at core it's this, like, it's these marriages that are imploding basically, and this like but if you I guess question the characters of why they're kind of blowing their lives up, is because I think that they are all yearning for more, for this like American idea of more. You should be able to achieve. There's a dream, there's a possibility. You should be able to achieve it, and if you can't, there's something wrong with you. So keep working harder. And we all, American dream, as we have learned and have been told, is flawed. And so all of these things got into my head about what these characters were dealing with socially. I also see the women a lot differently than the way that they've been portrayed. We've seen Daisy as this kind of like flighty butterfly, but I think she's a woman who's incredibly intelligent, who's not seen that way in her world, who's in an abusive marriage with somebody who doesn't appreciate her, and then this man comes into her life who reignites her and gives her hope for a version of herself she may have lost. Meanwhile, the other female character, Myrtle, is this working class striver who, in a lot of the adaptations, has been seen as this like kind of silly floozy who is like the butt of a joke. But I see her as somebody who was not, like, in a way she's parallel to Gatsby. It didn't work out for her. A lot of their storylines could have been like they kind of a double helix around each other. There's a lot of similarities, and so I'm kind of imagining her as she would have been Gatsby if like she had turned to crime in the ways that he had. Gatsby to me is also a working class character. He comes from nothing, and so I see him that way. I connect to him in that way. And moving through this world that is foreign to him, and he's trying his best, but there's never enough. And so I think there's a lot of feeling amongst the characters of not being enough. And so that is, I guess my take is just that I'm filling out the characters in ways that I've seen them when I read it, that sparked in me the desire to kind of spend more time with them. It's such an incredible book. I think it's maybe changed my life to have reread it. It's made me look at a lot of things in my own life as well that I've been changing, and I'm so excited to share it. I'm so proud of it. The music is incredible. I can't wait. I can't wait to be in the rehearsal room for
Well,
it.
I'm excited. I can't wait either now. You got me all excited. Well, and like you're saying too, I think it's a really neat thing, if I might sum up a little bit. It's like you keep redefining, keep asking the question, like, what does it mean to be an American? Like, what is, like, and what is your dream? What are our collective dreams? And going back to, like, the search for identity, of course, is part of that. But who are you amongst everyone else too, and who are you together here now?
Yeah.
And I think that's exciting to explore, particularly.
It was also such an incredible time in the 20s, where like everything was modernized, and all this progress was happening, maybe a little too fast, and people couldn't kind of keep up with it. They didn't quite know, and also caused so much want in everybody. I was doing, I've like done rabbit holes of research. They're so delightful because it means you don't have to write; you just read a lot. It's great. But I read something about how it did a number on a lot of the working class, because there were all these things there were these possibilities of things that you could have that indicate that you're living a full life, and it caused people I think it must have been the beginning of this sort of drive that we have now, and that the like culture of busyness that I think we have come to know as like our contemporary culture was born, I think, of this time. And so it's interesting to kind of keep going back and being like, oh, the seeds were sown here in the 20s, and here we are 100 years later, like not having learned anything, but actually further like descending into these same desires and
see where our social norms come from.
Yeah.
Some of them anyway. And how we think of each other. That's really cool. That's really good. Well, I'm excited. When it's so fall of next year. Then what do you think? When is it coming? For Gatsby at ART.
I'm not gonna reveal. So 2024.
2024.
But let's say around a year from now.
We'll just say around from a year now. No one. Don't set your watches or anything. But if you want to check in, then it might be a good idea. Well, it sounds like you have so many great projects, and looking forward to all of them and hearing more as you can talk about them at certain points and too. And just want to say thank you for taking the time to be with us here today. And if before we say goodbye, where can people go to find out more about these programs coming up for you, these projects, and of course your past projects? Where can we send them to?
You can go to my website. It's Martyna Majok, MartynaMajok.com, and then I'm the only me on Instagram. So like DM me and like we'll hang out. I don't know.
There you go. She's pretty approachable. What can I say? She's a pretty nice gal. She's a good gal. Let's tell you.
Thanks.
You betcha. Well, thanks again, Martyna.
Thank you very much.
Being here and joining us on this Artist Spotlight episode of Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home here in Upper Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show us some love right now by rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcasts. It really does help. Many thanks to the Church of the Good Shepherd here in Inwood for hosting us, and to HeightsHeights.com for uptown promotional support. You can support On Air and all of our programming by making a tax-free donation at inwoodartworks.nyc/donate or via Venmo at Inwood Artworks. Follow us on social media to keep all that we do, including the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, pop-up art galleries, live performances, and so much more. Inwood Art Works On Air is proud to be supported in part by public funds from the New York State Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. And our programming is made possible by the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of the Office of the Governor of the New York State Legislature. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Art Works On Air.